We saw these Nazi group chats, which I'm sure you condemn, right? This Nazi group chat.
Well, we can talk about it.
Do you condemn it?
I want to talk about it.
Wait, so when they said gas chambers,
disavow.
When they say gas chambers, you won't. So you're like JD Vance. You just won't condemn this?
Well, I actually had JD on the show today. We had a whole conversation.
You guys can all condemn this, right?
Progressive commentator Adam Mockler recently found himself in a heated exchange with Andrew Kvet, a staunch MAGA voice who many people may not immediately recognize, especially since he's the one who stepped into Charlie Kirk's role on that program. Their back and forth took place during a News Nation town hall steered by Chris Cuomo, and the full discussion is available on the network's channel, featuring a range of political guests and media figures. In this portion of the event, Mockler and Kvet locked horns over the surge in political violence and the question of who should be held accountable for contributing to it, and I'll be walking through several moments from their debate while offering my own thoughts along the way, so let's dive into it together.
It cannot be just one side talking about why the other is worse. Nothing gets better that way. So, one of the things that we were talking about tonight is social media as a dominant force in our democracy, right? I would argue probably the dominating force. So how do we show balance in that and where we're headed? Good question, better answer. Adam Mockler is part of the vanguard of podcasts on the left. He works with Midas Touch. He has his own standalone, millions and millions of followers. He is one of the most listened to people on the left. Next to him is Andrew Colvett. He is part of Turning Point USA. He was the executive producer for Charlie Kirk, a very close friend of Charlie Kirk's, and he is carrying forward their sense of purpose on the podcast and with the organization. And I thank you both for being with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Andrew, let me start with you. We have met relatively recently. I was with Charlie on Patrick Bet-David's podcast for hours. We talked, we texted. It was fruitful, disagreed a lot. How we disagreed mattered. What have you learned, positive and negative, in the aftermath of his assassination?
Yeah, and by the way, Chris, he said really nice things about you in private, and that's why when we had a chance to get together, after all of this happened, I was more than happy to connect, and I'm glad we did. What I've learned is that there is a really, really vile undercurrent of political violence. And, we talked about this briefly, but it's actually emanating from the political left. There was a YouGov economist poll that came out, I believe, it was between September 12th and the 15th. So the poll started 2 days after the assassination of Charlie. And what they found was about 30% of self-described liberals between the ages of 18 and 39 believed that political violence was justifiable to advance political ends. 30%. Meanwhile, conservatives of that same age group were among the most peaceful. So you see this diversion that's happening. Conservatives are getting more peaceful. Young conservatives were more likely to answer no, political violence is not acceptable than their older counterparts. However, it was completely inverted, and there's one node on that graph that stands out like a sore thumb, and that's young progressives. So what I've learned is that there is a really sick thing happening somewhere in our culture, and we could debate where it starts from, but it is there, because when you saw what happened to Charlie, a father, a husband, a wonderful, wonderful person that I can attest in the privacy of I assume we're going to get to these leaked text messages. I will tell you, Charlie Kirk in the private was more extraordinary than he was in public. He was more kind, he was more generous, he was more gracious, he was more loyal. Truly, truly a man who lived his faith even in the quiet in the private parts of his life. And yet there was people that were giddy. And that is disgusting. Now, I will tell you, I believe it was a small minority. I think it was a small minority. And it was so disgusting that we made a lot of noise about it. Okay, so it became a much bigger story. I believe that the American people are good, generous people. I think are decent people in this country. But the fact that there was even that many people that felt emboldened to say something or to jump on his grave or to be giddy at something that vile and gross is a disgrace, and it's a black eye on our country.
Now, Adam and I talked about this, and I found you very eloquent on this, on the line that had to be drawn. There was no yeah but for you when it came to Charlie Kirk's assassination. People should not get killed for what they believe in and expressing ideas in America. And you see it differently in terms of, yes, there is violence, increasingly so in our politics. Why do you think it is, and do you believe it is disproportionately coming from young progressives?
Well, Andrew pointed out an undercurrent of political violence, but there is a deeper undercurrent here of political radicalization of young people, primarily young men. So the same time that Charlie Kirk was tragically shot, another young white dude shot up Evergreen High School in Colorado, and this dude was a far-right neo-Nazi who had anti-Semitic messages online. I think that there's an undercurrent of radicalization that's stemming from a few things. As a 23-year-old, I lived through COVID during my most formative years, and I was able to rebound and have a social life, but a lot of young people didn't really get to rebound. Imagine having this bubble up around you during COVID, and you never really get to pull that bubble down, so you get sucked deeper and deeper down these algorithms online. Those algorithms are then, incentivized to push the most outrage, whether it's foreign bots like Russia and Iran trying to get people outraged, or domestic actors. I think Elon Musk's Twitter feed, for example, is disgusting and could radicalize a lot of young people. I disagree with the idea that violence disproportionately comes from young progressives. It is uniquely up this year, but if you look at any polls, according to CSIS, political violence overwhelmingly comes from the right. These mass shootings come from the right. And when it comes to the leaked text messages that came out 24 hours ago, I don't think it's fair to say there's an undercurrent just on the left. I know what you mean, but there's also an undercurrent on the right. There is something deep and dark boiling inside the GOP, and it's like the Nick Fuentes faction of the GOP. You can't deny that this is boiling when we got these leaked texts 24 hours ago. I do not like when people are characterizing these as kids in college. These were grown adults. Some of them were 32 years old. One of them was a state senator from Vermont. Today, we saw an Ohio aide with a swastika in the back. I would never claim that this is representative of an entire party, but I do think there's an undercurrent of radicalization on both sides.
Well, can I?
Go ahead, Andrew, please put a point on it, and then we'll go to the audience.
Before Andrew Kvet jumps into his next point, I want to highlight something that really stands out to me when comparing how the left and the right approach these conversations. Chris Cuomo opens the discussion by basically saying we can't just dump every political problem on the opposing side while pretending our own camp is spotless, and although I'm summarizing, that was the essence of his message. Yet the moment Andrew Kvet steps in, he immediately launches into the same routine. Blaming the left, insisting progressives are the source of all violence, while Adam Mockler responds by acknowledging that both sides have issues but stressing that the right carries the greater share. And this is the line people like Kvet refuse to cross. They simply cannot accept that their own movement might contribute to the problem. We'll see Adam Mockler press him on this shortly, but the reality is that no figure in recent American politics has fueled political rage and extremism more than Donald Trump, a man who casually labels his opponents fascists, calls them vermin, and openly expresses hatred toward them, even repeating that sentiment to Charlie Kirk's widow at his memorial. And of course, we can't pretend January 6th didn't happen. What's ironic is how MAGA personalities act shocked and outraged when anyone makes jokes or harsh comments after Charlie Kirk's passing, even while J.D. Vance went on the program that Kvet now hosts and brushed off messages from young supporters spouting vile, Nazi-style rhetoric by saying they're just kids being edgy. Would J.D. Vance say that if some college student mocked Kirk's death online or posted memes about him? Absolutely not. He'd likely demand that student be punished or expelled. This is the pattern with MAGA: constant projection and zero willingness to acknowledge misconduct on their own side, and whenever the topic shifts to right-wing violence, they run straight back to the same talking point: Black Lives Matter. Yet every progressive or left-leaning person I know condemns violence, looting, or destruction without hesitation and consistently says that anyone responsible should face legal consequences.
I want to find agreement. Charlie, if you ever watch his debates really closely, he was a master at making that human connection with people. He would say, so we agree. Even if they were worlds apart, he would try and find a place where he would agree with the student or the professor often that would come debate him. So I agree with you that COVID had a profound effect on Gen Z. I did not live through that, and my heart goes out to Gen Z students that lost their proms and their graduations from that and lost their social lives. However, the study you just cited didn't include things like, the Tesla attacks that were against Elon Musk and Tesla.
The study shows lethal deaths, lethal violence. Lethal violence comes disproportionately from the right. The Tesla attacks were not lethal. We can point to the Buffalo shooting, the El Paso supermarket.
I let you talk.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Wow. All right. So there's a whole bunch.
You tried to debunk my study, so.
Is it your study? Did you do it?
I did not do it. But
what is your point, sir?
My point is that time and time again, whether it's the Erin Burnett on CNN, God bless her, she tried to quote the same study. They didn't include a lot of what we would consider left-wing violence in that study. Okay, first of all. Second of all, my dear friend was just killed by left-wing violence, assassinated in cold blood. There has been how many ICE facilities that have been targeted? And when you look at what's happening right now, I agree with you on the radicalization. But you have to be honest about the fact that you even admitted, well, this year it's progressives. Well, what about George Floyd? What about that whole summer of looting and rioting? Listen, there has been a trend of, I think, let's just say, let's be gracious and say, in the era of Trump, maybe it's a reaction to Trump. I'm open to those discussions, but there is a justification for political violence. It shows up in every poll, and it's coming from progressives.
I have spent all of my formative years watching the President of the United States talk about the opposition party like they shouldn't exist. His claim to fame in U.S. politics was saying that Obama wasn't born in America. That is how he entered the political stage. He was famous before that, but that was his claim to fame. He was the first presidential candidate to ever chant "lock her up" on a political stage. He tried to coup our government. Well, and I live in this, let me finish. Listen. I live in the city of Chicago. Donald Trump, over the past 2 months, has not only posted an AI video of Obama being arrested, but then after that, he posted an AI image of Chicago being invaded. After that, he sent the National Guard to Chicago. So I've spent my formative years watching the president do this. And just think about this. We saw these Nazi group chats, which I'm sure you condemn, right? This Nazi group chat.
Well, we can talk about it.
Do you condemn it?
I want to talk about it.
Wait, so when they said gas chambers,
disavow.
When they say gas chambers, you won't. So you're like JD Vance. You just won't condemn this?
Well, I actually had JD on the show today. We had a whole conversation.
You guys can all condemn this, right?
Hell yes.
Thank you.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on.
But
Chris, can you condemn that?
Here's the point, of course. But that's easy. What I'm
for him, but you know what? This is not constructive, right?
Because what the constructive part is not. This is what's happening here, and I know both of you guys, and I want to bring Joe in on this, and I want to get to the audience.
So when Andrew Colvett jumps back in, he starts complaining that the conversation isn't going anywhere and basically wants Chris Cuomo to let him continue blaming everything on the left, which is pretty much the only move MAGA commentators ever make. And honestly, Adam Mockler nails it when he points out how Trump's constant buzzwords and hostile language have shaped the way every MAGA pundit talks, and you can hear that exact style in Colvett's responses. Then he brings up George Floyd again, which is something I mentioned earlier, and it's wild because they always want to go back to an event from years ago instead of addressing what is happening right now with the rise in right-wing violence across the country. And if you were on social media during that time, you remember how awful the posts were, whether it was Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even people you personally knew were saying terrible things about George Floyd. Did Andrew Colvett ever call any of that out? I doubt it, and none of the big MAGA names did either. That is why Mockler's point hits so hard, because he is a progressive who openly admits that yes, there is some violence on the left, but there is a lot more coming from the right, and neither Charlie Kirk nor his replacement Andrew Colvett seems willing to acknowledge any of it. All they do is repeat the same thing, that it is the left, the left, the left. This is literally the cycle we get every time from these right-wing guys. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with Adam Mockler in this town hall with Chris Cuomo, or do you side with Andrew Colvett? If you want to watch the full event, it is up on News Nation's YouTube channel, and it is pretty long with a bunch of different guests. I will probably make another video covering more of the discussions, but for now drop your thoughts in the comments and I will see you in the next one.